There are so many things that we just could not fathom. We have every right not to understand because we are human, but we have to trust. And so at some point, Job says, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him.
Yeah.
Yet will I hope in him.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, God, you have called me to trust you. And that trust is what binds my heart to God and helps me align with him and walk out my humanity the way God intended me to.
And I remember praying, God's protect these kids. And it didn't happen on this side of eternity. I think God can perform miracles. I think God can heal, but he didn't. How do I process that?
So think about when Jesus was on the planet. Here's God on the planet. How come he didn't heal everybody in the world? Ministered to some people and healed them, but there were a lot of people that weren't healed.
Yeah.
How come Jesus just didn't solve everybody's problems?
Yeah.
Because again, that's not really the issue.
Can you start helping me understand that? Where's the breakdown or the struggle in that old versus new? And how do I understand God is the same God of both, and yet sometimes I feel, or some people feel, there's a big difference between the two? Hey, welcome back to our podcast. I got Pastor Terry with me today, and we're going to have a fun time talking about God, the God of the Old Testament, the God of the New Testament. There isn't a difference, and yet sometimes a lot of people feel like there is when you're reading the Old Testament and the New. Also, maybe we might jump into a little bit of that good and evil, and does God allow evil? Does he allow pain and suffering? And just trying to navigate and process through that, because I think everyone that's lived more than a day on this planet has had something bad happen, and then you feel like, why did this happen? Does God love me? Is he hearing my prayers? And so maybe we could give some people just clarity on that, you know?
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully, right? Hopefully we could give them something.
We'll settle the age-old question today, everybody.
Today it's over, and then we're going to move on. Okay, let me start with this question, though. We often hear that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Yet a lot of us feel the God of the Old Testament is angry, judgmental, while the God of the New Testament is loving and gracious. Can you start helping me understand that? Where's the breakdown or the struggle in that old versus new, and how do I understand God is the same God of both, and yet sometimes I feel, or some people feel, there's a big difference between the two?
Yeah. Well, I think the big difference is Jesus. The Old Testament, it was all pointing towards Jesus, but Jesus hadn't come yet. And so God had to reveal himself in ways that people could handle and understand, but still their view of God was limited. So when you read the Old Testament, they don't have a full understanding of who God is. We are blessed because when Jesus came, he said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Well, boy, when you read about Jesus' life, it's some of the things he says seem to be so different than what we experienced in the Old. And that's because they only experienced a part of God in the Old. And so if we stuck with the Old, we would get this impression that God is a wrathful, mean, judgmental God. But one thing too, like some of the psalmists, like David, he understood that God is merciful, because when you look at the history of Israel and the rebellion and the idolatry and the constant falling away from God, is like, why did God wait so long to judge them?
It's true.
You know, that's the thing that boggles my mind is, God, in his mercy and his grace, he dealt with people for so long before he actually said, okay, I'm going to deal with this.
Yeah.
And so we see his grace and his mercy in the Old Covenant, but it is sometimes overwhelmed by the judgment in the wilderness where he kills people off, and then he says, go into Canaan and kill these people. And so you think that God is just a God of war and that's it? Well, no, he is a God of war, but that's just one aspect.
Yeah.
So I think some of that comes from that lack of revelation.
You know, for, like you mentioned, the God that some people will question, especially those that don't believe and question believers, like, well, how can you serve a God that told Israel to kill everyone and demolish them and, he would erase them from the world? How do we process that part of God, how we're with the God of love and forgiveness and mercy, and how does that make sense?
Yeah. So in Genesis 15, God spoke to Abraham and he said that There's going to come your people are going to go into captivity and live under a nation's rule. And then 400 years later, I'm going to bring you to the land because the cup of the Amorites is not yet full.
Yeah.
And what he was referring to was the Canaanites who were living in Canaan at the time.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, God was giving the Amorites 400 or 500 years to repent.
Wow.
So even with the Gentile nations, he was working and giving them opportunities to change before he judged them.
Yeah.
So when you think in those terms, a judge has every right to judge, to render a verdict.
Yeah.
And so God is the judge of the world because he created the world. He has every right to do what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And so it reminds me of a passage in Romans 9 where Paul talks about how can we who are like clay say to the potter, why are you doing this?
Yes.
So what right do we have to tell God what or he should or shouldn't do? Mm-hmm. But that is the arrogance of humanity when we say, well, I don't think that's a good God. I don't think that's the way God should. Well, who consulted you? Who made you president? You know, it's like, no, we as human beings, we are created. Mm-hmm. God is the creator. He determines what he's going to do. But when you look at what he does with humans, he really is patient and endures centuries before he actually deals with things.
It's like you could probably use the story of Jonah, where he's reluctant to go to Nineveh because he knows that God is actually merciful. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't want you to forgive those people. Like, I want those people to go out. Like, we hate those people because they're evil and they worship false gods and they kill people. And there's a lot of issues in that nation.
Yeah.
And God still says, no, like, give them one more chance. Give them my message and see what happens. And then Jonah's like, yeah, but I know it's going to happen. They're going to repent and you're not going to, you're not going to do what I want you to do is take them out.
Yeah.
And so it does show that there's that mercy. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I love your thought on that, on being a judge. If we had judges today and they never judged, it was always, you're okay to go, you're okay to go. And they keep releasing people that had done something, earning judgment and earning discipline. That's not a loving judge.
Right.
Like at some point you go, wait, this person wronged me. They hurt my child. They did something evil. The judge is the one that I need to trust to go, because you love, and you love the person that was wronged and the person that was hurt, and you love you hate evil. I need your judgment.
Yep. And that's what we are seeing in our society. We're seeing a lot of judges that are not rendering verdicts that are just for the society.
Right.
You know, they're being compassionate to the criminal, but that compassion is not compassionate to the society who's been victimized by the criminal. And so there's a warped view of what judgment is or what compassion is. And so I think we bring that into our understanding of God, and we think, well, if God's compassionate, then he should just let everybody do whatever they want. Not even a loving father would do that with their children.
True.
Right? There's things that have to be dealt with. And we see that in the Bible, that God is judge. The word wrath, I tend to use a different word because when people think of wrath, they think of ticked off or like blowing your cork, you know, like a temper tantrum or whatever. God doesn't do that. He doesn't blow off and steam and is like, I'm just sick of this. I'm going to deal with. No, it's always deliberate that this has to be dealt with. So I like the term judgment because he renders judgment on evil. And it's deliberate. It's like a judge in a court. He's not emotional. He just goes by the law and he says, okay, this is the way it needs to be done. And so we see God judges, but he's also merciful in the fact that he doesn't deal with our every misbehavior.
Right.
He's not a micromanager.
Yeah.
So he gives us lots of wiggle room. But at some point, he says, okay, this has got to be dealt with, because if I don't, you're going to destroy yourself or other people are going to be destroyed around you as a result of this. And that's compassion. That's love.
How come the Old Testament seems like it's so heavy on that one side?
Well, probably because people weren't born again. They didn't have God's Spirit in them. They were fallen human beings, and the natural part of fallen human beings is to sin. And so in the Old Testament, we see that there's not really a remedy for that yet. That comes when Jesus comes.
Okay.
But what God is doing in the process, though, is teaching, especially he chooses a people, and he says, now, I'm going to choose you, and you are to represent me on the earth so other people can know me. Well, but they were fallen people, just like everybody else. And so they were always making mistakes, always blowing it. I mean, you know, when we read the Old Testament, I can't identify with the ridiculousness of their idolatry.
Yeah.
Now, I sin. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. But I still love God. And it's not like I go off and go after other gods. But Israel did all the time.
Yeah.
And that's because of the natural state of a fallen human being.
Yeah.
And so all God could do at that point was start teaching people and getting them ready for the Lamb of God, the Messiah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he came up with this system of sacrifices and really was trying to teach them it's the innocent that pays for the guilty. Every time you kill a lamb or a goat or a bull, what did they ever do? Nothing.
Right.
But they're the innocent party and they have to pay for your guilt.
Right.
And so hopefully what God was trying to do was build in their mindset a preparation for the Messiah, that when he was to come, they would recognize, oh, he's the innocent one who will die for the guilty. But they still missed it.
But we just keep missing. You know, recently, I try to go, read my Bible at different paces. Sometimes I'm really slow and methodical and verse by verse. And then other times I'm trying to get almost like a full picture. So it's like some days I want to evaluate the tree. Other times I want to see the whole forest. And when I read the Old Testament as fast as I can, it gets me back to this feeling like, what are they doing? Like, would you guys cut it out? Why do you keep going up and down so dramatically? It's like, at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm with God. Let's take these people out and move on. Like, this has just gotten crazy. Like, how come you can't just stay faithful and stay committed? And every time you're faithful to God, you see the blessing. You see the provision. And yet it seems like even in our own world, we're up and down too. Even in Israel, Moses goes up the mountain. He's gone for 40 days. He comes back and they've already built another calf. And you're like, a month? Guys, you couldn't last. Like, didn't you just see the 10 plagues in Egypt?
Right.
Didn't you just see the Red Sea split? And somehow that didn't give you enough stamina to last a month. But it's still, I guess in our world today, we get so, self-righteous, or just we process the Old Testament and go, yeah, but we see all these wars and people and fighting and killing, and it's hard to process. And sometimes we feel it's hard to defend. How would we, maybe defend's not the right word, but when someone's confronting us on that style of the Old Testament God, as a Christian, how do we process that to help people understand it?
Yeah. I want to coattail though off something you said. Consider even today, after Jesus has come and he's offered his Spirit for us to be born again, how many people are church attenders that are not born again? They live like Israel.
Yeah.
Right? They struggle. They come to church. They think that that's going to help them.
Yeah.
They maybe participate in some maybe they lift their hands even in church.
Yeah.
But they're not born again. So then they go back and then they still struggle with the same stuff over and over. And they are just like Israel was.
Yeah.
That's what happens when we're not born again. That's why we need Jesus.
Yeah. Because
we cannot be this way without him. All we are, the best that we could be, which is actually the worst, is religious, self-righteous. And that's what Israel was. And so that to me, it shows that without Jesus, humans are doomed to live like this all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So as far as helping explain to people, or how do we reconcile God being loving and kind, but still promoting this kind of violence? I guess people would think. Okay. Well, the first thing would be maybe the flood. Let's look at the flood.
Okay.
So you've got in Genesis 6, it says the whole earth was filled with violence.
Yeah.
The whole earth. And not one intention of man was good. Every intention was evil.
Yeah. That's
I
crazy.
can't even imagine that would be today. I don't think everybody's thoughts, every intention is evil.
True.
People have got good intentions and there are
True.
things.
Correct.
But Genesis 6 describes humanity at that point as completely sold out.
Yeah.
There was nobody that had any inkling
Yeah.
for God except one, Noah. And maybe because of his love for God, his family was spared. But that's it. So what would happen then if God didn't do anything? Once Noah dies, all humanity is gone. It's completely sold out to rebel against God. God's lost all humanity. So in order to preserve humanity,
Yeah.
he has to destroy
Yeah.
those who are evil.
Yeah.
And it's not like he doesn't love them. It's not like he says, well, I'm done with you guys. I hate you guys.
Yeah.
No, he didn't want to start over.
Yeah.
He wanted to preserve what he could. And all that was Noah and his family. So that shows to me the negativity of the world. It wasn't just because God doesn't like people who sin. So God's never flooded the earth again
Yeah.
like he did then. So it shows that this is a remarkable event, a very unique event because of the uniqueness of the evil of the world. So again, we can't put it on God that he's just a mad God and he doesn't like people. No,
Yeah.
he had to preserve humanity, and that's how he did it. Okay, well then if we look at Israel and his covenant with Israel, they're partners with him. They said, yes, we will be your people. We will do what you tell us to do.
Yeah.
They said that a couple of times in Exodus 19 and 20.
Yeah.
They
And then
didn't.
they didn't.
They blew it.
Over and over.
Yeah. And of course, then after the golden calf incident, God was saying to Moses, okay, I'm going to wipe these people out and I'll start a people from you.
Yeah.
I think God was testing Moses there. And thank God that Moses and God didn't get on the same page at the same time, because then maybe Israel would have been destroyed. But again, the point was God said, if I have to destroy them, I will start a new people from you. But I think it was a test to see if Moses was committed to Israel.
Yeah.
And Moses then jumped in and said, no, God, don't do that.
Don't.
You said that to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you promised that you would develop a people from them. And so keep your promise so that the world around will know that you are a promise-keeping God. And God says, yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think God was, so fickle in his mind that he said, well, 1 minute I'm going to kill him, the next minute I'm not.
Yeah.
No, everything God does is deliberate.
Yeah.
And it's not an emotional reactions.
Yeah. That would be a tough test for me. I'm glad it was Moses and not me. I'm like, you know what? I think you're right, God. Let's get rid of some of these guys. Yeah. So we know that Jesus says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So all of God is revealed in Jesus. So when we look at Jesus, that's a lens that we go, cool, that is what the Father is. All of the Old Testament. We just haven't seen that side of him. That's a revelation that's still being revealed to us. God doesn't change, but he's revealing himself to us slowly. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So in the Bible, especially the Old Testament, we do see a progression of revelation.
Okay.
God reveals himself little by little in new ways to his people. And so throughout the scriptures, we see by his names that he reveals himself. For example, in Genesis chapter 1, he's revealed as Elohim, the creator God. Then in chapter 2, you got the name Jehovah that enters in, which is a covenant name. And then in Genesis 22, where Abraham is going to sacrifice Isaac, God reveals himself as Jehovah Ra'ah or Jireh, the one who will provide or sees. Okay. Then later on, he reveals himself as the God Most High. So we see this throughout the entire Old Testament. And because it's a progressive revelation, that means that there are aspects of God that they don't know.
Okay.
But when Jesus comes, it's like the fullness of God that finally shows up, and we see who God really is in Jesus. So if that's the case, then you can understand why people would have a misperception of God in reading the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the full picture.
Yeah.
And so if the people of Israel, if we are that way, the people of Israel certainly are going to be that way. And so they're seeing God through a dark filter. They're not seeing every aspect of him. But what they do see of him, they do see judgment, but they also see mercy and grace and kindness and compassion. And God has revealed himself as, I am a God full of compassion, showing compassion to 1,000 generations to those who serve him. So we see those aspects, but there's still limits. It's kind of like blinders that are on the people. And so Paul refers to that even in 2 Corinthians. He says that even to this day, the Jews, when they read the scriptures, there's a veil over their mind. They don't see it. But that veil is taken away in Christ, which to me, that's just emphasizes it's Jesus that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
That's why he's so important.
What about, so I'm looking at Jesus and he's revealing all of God to me. What does that show me? If I'm looking at the Old Testament through the lens of Jesus, what is it that now I go, okay, I missed it, but that's what I need to learn, accept? You know, it's like I need to change my perspective of God to see correctly. What are those shifts?
So one cool shift is when people saw Jesus, they were actually seeing the law fulfilled the way God intended the law to be fulfilled.
Okay.
Because in the Old Testament, God gave these laws to Israel to follow, but because of our human corruption, we look at laws wrong. Yeah. And then we either see them as things to break or a way to make myself righteous, to shore up my ego. And that's what Israel did. They went either way with the law. They messed it up. But when Jesus comes along, he actually is living out the law. He says, guys, this is what I intended from the very beginning. Yeah. This is what a human being looks like in living out the law of God. And Jesus did it very organically, very naturally. It wasn't religious. It wasn't rigid. It was just a flow. Yeah. And so when we see Jesus, we are seeing, oh, that's how we're supposed to live as human beings. Yeah. Because I really believe, from what I can tell in the scripture, God didn't come to save us and make us Christians. He came to restore our humanity. Yeah. And our humanity can only be found when we're really in fellowship with our Creator. Yeah. Well, Jesus showed how to do that. He prayed all the time. And this is one thing I've learned for myself over the last few years. Yeah. I've been a Christian for about 55 years. And I'm just getting it in the last few years. And I just think this is ridiculous.
Dang it, I got some years ahead of me then.
Yeah, you don't have to wait that long.
Hopefully not. Yeah. But I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but this prayer thing to me is so big because Jesus actually showed to us, this is how you walk in fellowship with the Father, where you actually unite yourself with his desires and his will so that you can walk it out. You've got to go to him and get your strength from him. And the way you do that is in your prayer time. You focus on him. You let him speak to you through his word. You talk to him and be honest with him. Yeah. And eventually in this conversation with God, you start getting in line with him. Your desires start falling in line with his. But it all starts with a commitment to the Creator. You are my Creator, I am the creation. And in doing that, that's the beginning point and the attitude change and the attitude shift that we need. And Jesus showed that. Yeah. He said, this is how a human being operates as a human being. You submit to the Father, just like I'm submitting to the Father. So he exemplified to us what it is to be human. And that's why if Jesus hadn't come, we'd still be in the dark. We'd still be living religiously. We'd still be living corruptly, rebelliously. So to me, that's a big part of what happened when Jesus showed up. He showed us how to be human again. But the way to become human is to be united with the Father. So Jesus came to reconcile us to the Father. He said, but I'm going to have to do this for you. Yeah. I'm going to show you how to live, but I'm going to have to die for you. Yeah. And I'm going to have to pay the penalty for your sin. But in doing so, then that frees you up now to come to the Father without guilt, without fear, without condemnation, and live in relationship with him just like I have been doing for you.
Talk to me about your prayer life. I know I need this more. I'm sure there's a lot of us that go, okay, help me get that. what does that prayer life look like? That connection that, okay, if I want to live submitted and connected to God, give me some action steps, some help, 55 years of experience and you're feeling like, okay, I'm really taking ground now. What does that look like without making it too systematic and all of a sudden going back to now it's works and religion and a checklist?
Yeah.
Give me some help.
Yeah. So it's kind of like what we're doing right now. We're having a conversation, right?
Yeah.
When we have a conversation, we get to know each other better. Mm-hmm. That's what it is with God. It's just having conversation with him. But because of our religious ideas or whatever, it just messes us up. Mm-hmm. We make prayer a religious duty. Okay, well, I'm going to have to pray. I guess I got to pray. That's what Christians do.
Yeah.
Really? Is that the way you feel about your spouse? Is that the way you feel about your kids?
Right. Not at all. Hopefully not.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully not.
Some people do feel that way, right?
True.
And that is a problem. But it's when we start thinking that way about God, okay, I got to have prayer time with God because that's just what we're supposed to do. Wait a minute. No, if I'm going to be human the way God wants me to be human, I need to get to know him. I need to know his heart. I need to what's the word? Sympathetic resonance. If you put a glass of water on a piano and then you play certain notes on the piano, there's certain harmonics that'll resonate with the water and the water will harmonize.
No way.
It will move in reaction to the frequency. See, it starts to align and harmonize with the piano.
Wow.
Well, that's the way we are as human beings.
Yeah.
If we're going to be truly human, the way God designed us to be, we have to harmonize with God. But the only way we're going to do that is by spending time with him.
Yeah.
Because it takes time for our will, our emotions, our thoughts, our agendas to start harmonizing with sympathetic resonance with God. And if we don't spend time in prayer, then we're always disjointed. Yes, we love God, we know him, so to speak, but we really don't. Yeah. And so we're operating as human beings in our own strength and ability, and that's why we struggle. That's why we go through so much of our misery that we create for ourselves, because our thinking is out of line with God, our hearts are out of line with God, our ability to just live out of this place of peace we can't find it because we haven't found it in our prayer time. Prayer time allows us to get in touch with what it is to be at peace. How did I find this peace? Oh, okay. I just started sharing with God what I was thinking and feeling. And then as I took time to listen, I sensed this calmness and, okay, now plug into that. That's where you need to operate from. Okay. And that only comes by an ongoing conversation with God.
Yeah,
I had a conversation with my wife last year. Isn't that enough? Well, no, I mean our conversations have to be an ongoing thing. Now you may miss a day, maybe because of your schedules or whatever, but because you've had an ongoing conversation, that's not going to matter too much. But with us as human beings, we tend to have a day of conversation with God and then many days without it.
Yeah.
But that's all prayer is. Well, prayer is us talking to God, and then reading the scriptures and listening is God talking to us. So that's the conversation that we need to have.
I heard this, read this author say the other day, and it really helped me because I've off and on struggled with that idea of, man, I want to hear God more. I read those stories of Moses, and I'm just like, sometimes I get so jealous of those face-to-face encounters, and so this author said, well, when we talk, we create noise that we've learned what that means in our minds. So we translate it in our minds what you're saying. I get a thought, and then I communicate back to you. Well, God doesn't need the first step because he could speak right to your mind without creating the noise. He's going right to the source, to the point, what matters. And that helped free me because I kept waiting for more, I wasn't thinking I need audible every morning from God in my prayer time. Maybe I wish that would happen. But when I realized, wait, God doesn't need the first step that I need with everyone else. I need you to talk out loud so I know what you're saying. And then I need to talk back out loud for you to know what I'm saying. He doesn't need that step. He could speak right to my heart, right to my mind. And that did help me. I don't know if it will help anyone else, but just the idea of like, wait, he doesn't need the first step that I need with everyone else. And so in my time of prayer, I could talk out loud if I want to, just to be audible with him and confess what I'm thinking. But then that quiet time of just listening, sitting, allowing him to speak right to me and realize, this isn't just me thinking. This is him leading my thoughts. This is him leading my heart or him leading my spirit. That recently even has helped me so much in my prayer time, just going, okay, he is speaking to me. That isn't me just being crazy. That isn't me just making up daydreams, as long as I'm controlling my focus. Because it's not going to be every morning audible, the heavens part, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. Right. It's that conversation where I bring what I'm worried about to God, what I'm concerned about to God, what I'm believing for to God, and then listen and let him start to lead my thoughts and lead my heart and lead my feelings. And that really has been pretty revolutionary just for me, even recently leaning more and more into that.
Yeah, good. So what are the source of our thoughts? It's always something that we've been reading or hearing, right? So for us as believers, what is the source of God speaking to us? It's his word.
Yeah.
If we don't know the Bible, then how in the world are we going to know if it's God speaking to us? Because the Bible is God speaking to us.
Yes.
And if we know the scriptures, we recognize his voice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that sounds like God.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we're going to miss it. And so God probably is speaking to people, but they're missing it all the time.
Yes.
Right? So the word of God becomes our way of knowing what these thoughts are, if this really is God speaking to me. And to me, when I'm praying, first of all, prayer to me is me speaking to God. I'm going to vocalize what I say because God knows my thoughts, but he wants me to say it.
Yeah.
Because there's something about vocalizing. When I start praying and I start praying my doubt or my fear or whatever, I start noticing, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to go there. But sometimes I do need to go there. I do just need to pour out my complaint. And there's a release there.
Yeah.
And we see that in the Psalms, right?
Yeah.
All these lament Psalms. So I pour out myself to God and speak. But I also notice that when I take time to listen, I start getting thoughts. And some of the thoughts are like, God will maybe speak to me and say, I'm your shield. I'm your rock. Well, where did I get that from? Well, it's from the Bible.
Yeah.
But that's the voice of God.
Yeah.
And so when he says that, then I say back to him, God, you're my shield.
Yeah.
You're my sword.
Yeah.
You're my rock. Well, I'm vocalizing what I've been thinking, but what God has been speaking to me about.
Yeah.
And again, it's conversation.
Yeah.
So that's a part of my conversation. I'm saying back to God what he's saying to me.
As you were starting that, I was already going to that same thought. It's like, sometimes I think a really great discipline for people is to acknowledge what God has said. So say it back out loud. Like as you were saying, I got that verse. What I've been doing recently, even more so, is either journaling it or talking to a friend about what I'm feeling I'm getting in my time with God. Because I become so fickle and forgetting what he says sometimes. But when I talk about it, it's almost like it pours it into concrete for me. So just recently, a few weeks ago, I really felt like, okay, he led me to this verse, and I ended up sharing it with the staff on taking your promised land and moving in. But I had to journal about it, and I even sent it to two of my friends, like, man, this is a thought that I've been working on, and I feel like God's been but it lasted in me. As opposed to just, I prayed a morning, I felt comfort or peace, I move on from it, I almost forget everything that happened. But it's like when you get a verse and you write it down, or I'll make it a screensaver for a day or two, it's like it keeps reaffirming to me that God does speak to me, that it didn't just drift. I didn't get swept away by the cares of my day. Sometimes I feel like we have to, live in those moments that God gives us a little better, a little longer, acknowledge them a little bit more clearly, so that they last more, so they're more significant. In marriage counseling, I've heard, I've been with a counselor and the guy will say, okay, tell me back what you think your wife just said.
Yeah.
Say out loud what you think you just heard. And then you say back and the guy's like, that's not what she said. And you're like, oh, but maybe that same idea is like, okay, I think God, you're telling me this. And the more you're confessing it and aligning yourself and you go, wait, he is saying this to me. And that verse really is from him. And I really am hearing from God. And I think that builds confidence and assurance in us. I don't journal every day because sometimes it just gets boring, gets religious or duty bound. But I do like having a journal in my backpack because I do like doing it often because it brings confidence or assurance to God is speaking to me. And then I get to look back and remember, remember last week, I almost forgot about that verse. Or last year, I forgot about that prayer. And it just keeps that faith in me alive.
And you can see why God wouldn't have to talk to you all the time. Because if he did, you'd forget most of it anyway. So if all he has to say is one thing, and that'll keep us going for a while.
It will.
Right? Because, and he wants us to remember that. Okay, build your life on this.
Yes.
Walk it out. Well, that's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will. But that one word from God can keep you busy for a long time. But yeah, to me, do we appreciate when God speaks to us? How do we value it?
Yes.
So, or is prayer just a time for me to just render my shopping list? God, I want this, I want this, I want this. So God just becomes a vending machine? No, that's not what this is about. It's about, if I'm truly going to be human and live the way that God designed me to be, I have to walk in fellowship with God. And the only way I can do that is by orienting my life around him so that he becomes the beginning, the source, the motivating factor in my life in what I do for the rest of the day. And sometimes that means then I'll recollect in the middle of the day. Oh yeah, that's right, God. Thank you for reminding me. But see, now I'm again tuned in that I'm walking with God. It's so easy to go through our day and not even think about him. And that's not bad necessarily, but it is if I'm starting to rely now on my own abilities and my own strength again.
Yeah.
Whereas, no, okay, God, somebody just said something nasty to me. Ooh, okay, peace. Father, I thank you that you love that person. So now how am I going to respond? And respond out of that sense that God's empowering me now. I don't just react like I normally react because I'm in tune now with what God is doing in my life and what he said to me earlier in the day and all that kind of stuff. So to me, that's what prayer is meant to be. It's not meant to be a religious duty.
And I find that he'll say stuff, and if I catch it, like I referenced earlier that a message that I ended up sharing with staff 2-3 weeks ago on not settling. And I really felt in my time of prayer, just this verse of going, it was the people of Israel going through the Jordan, taking the promised land, and how two of the tribes, 2.5, settled on the wrong side of the Jordan. Well, I wrote that verse down, and it didn't fully come alive in my heart for like 2 or 3 days, to be honest. Like I had a thought, and for some reason it just stood out to me, and I journaled about it, and I just let it sit there. But like 3 days later, all of a sudden that thought just kept growing in me. And about 2 weeks later is when I shared it with staff. But it was like God gave me an idea. I didn't lose it. I didn't let it drift, but I didn't have the full excitement of it, the full passion of it. But within days, it was like it just kept growing and kept growing. And by the time I shared it with staff, it was just so full in me because it was almost like he talked to me about it. He's like, you're going to need this in a few days. I'm just going to plant the seed. But then I had to foster it. I had to hold it. I had to make sure I didn't lose it because he had something, coming for me that I was going to want in a few days.
Yeah. There's a proverb that says it's the glory of God to conceal a matter and the glory of kings to search it out. And so it's almost like God will throw out these little things there. See now, are they going to get it?
Yeah.
Are they going to catch it? And it makes it interesting. It makes it fun to, there's a little thought that all of a sudden makes us go in a particular direction.
Yeah.
And if we will follow it and value it,
Yeah.
it will yield this wonderful treasure.
Yeah.
But so many people miss it because they don't spend time in prayer. They don't know how to listen. They don't know how to value. Okay, with all God needs to say is one thing. That's all I need.
Yeah.
And that'll get me going for a while. But then it'll get me on a track where I can start pursuing and discover, whoa! And when you discover it for yourself, nobody can rob it from you.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Okay, so I love this thought on being human, that Jesus showed us how to be human. It's kind of random, but in the garden, Adam falls, hides from God. God shows up, Adam, where are you? And then he goes, who told you that? So Jesus shows us how to be perfectly human. None of us are going to be Jesus. Right. So we're all going to make some mistakes. Yeah. So help me bridge this gap, since Jesus never showed me how to reply to God through failure. Or maybe you can like, since Jesus never failed, I never see him having to reply to God through him sinning. But I will. I fall short. I mess up. So to not turn back into Adam and to run and hide and, feel like God's judgmental and angry at me. How do I walk in this perfectly restored human life that Jesus models for me when those moments come? Yeah.
Well, we have plenty of examples of how to turn things around from failure. Just read the Old Testament.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So those will show us. David was a great example. Even after he sinned with Bathsheba, he repented and he acknowledged what he did as wrong, and he wrote a psalm about it. Okay, well, there's an example of how we are to get through failure.
Yeah.
Jesus doesn't have to show us that. We've got plenty of examples for that. What we needed was somebody to show us what to do right.
Right.
And so Jesus doesn't have to show us how to get through failure. No, we've got plenty of other examples for that.
And so that take is just thinking for me, and I think a lot of us, it's like when we mess up, when we have an issue, just getting back to God, being open, being human. Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah. And I think from what we can see in Scripture, it seems that what makes it difficult for us as humans to come to God is that we're thinking in terms of being worthy.
Okay.
So when Adam and Eve sinned, the immediate reaction was shame. Okay. And that's really the feeling of, I'm not good enough. I don't measure up. And that is a human problem. All of us deal with it at some level. But you even look at that situation in Genesis where when Adam and Eve sinned, God still pursued them.
Yeah.
He still wanted to be with them and fellowship with them. He wasn't put off by their sin. He wanted to rectify it.
Yeah.
But they didn't. See, they felt shame. They felt, oh no, we're not worthy. We're not good enough. And this is something that I've learned in the last few years for myself. I have struggled with inferiority complex, shame, condemnation for years as a Christian. Somewhere along the line, I think it was in counseling, going through seminary, all these things that helped me kind of put this together, I started realizing it's not about being good enough. It's about being loved. That's what God is trying to communicate to humanity. I love you. No, you don't. You destroyed most of humanity in the flood. It's because I love you. I wanted to save humanity. I saved Noah and so forth. But the greatest example of love is God coming as one of us and dying on a cross and saying, guys, you can't handle this. You can't pay for your sin. I'm going to pay for it because I love you. I want fellowship with you. God was in Christ reconciling the world unto himself. And so when we understand that God loves us, then when I sin, that's the first place I want to run. Is because I want to be restored in fellowship with God who loves me, not a God who's holding a gavel over my head and saying, nope, you made a mistake, no way. And many times people grow up in environments where that's how their parents treated them or their teachers or whatever. And so they translate that to God, but that's not who our God is. Well, yeah, but he judges sin. Well, of course he judges sin. What parent doesn't punish a child for doing what's wrong in order to teach them what's right?
Yeah.
So it's a loving thing to do. But maybe some people have when they think of punish, they think of abuse.
Yeah.
But God doesn't abuse us. He's not like a cat playing with a mouse before he kills him. That's not who God is.
It's that I've heard that statement. God made us in His image, and we've been making Him in ours ever since.
Yeah.
That idea that we're now projecting onto God how we treat others and how we treat people, and when we fail, we just project onto Him how He should treat us.
Yep.
And we forget to go, no, He is so loving, and He's so gracious, and He's merciful, and to be restored into your truest human self, you got to get back.
Yeah.
So let me pivot to an idea that I think a lot of people struggle with, both the God of the old and the new, and reconciling those, or thinking that there's two different gods.
Right.
I think another big holdup for people is evil. And does God allow it? And is God okay with it? And why doesn't God do more to stop bad things? Why didn't He stop Hitler? Why doesn't He stop war? Why doesn't He intervene? How come when I prayed for my daughter, she got sick? How come when I prayed for my dad, he died? How do I process a loving God? And I think this is the kicker. People go, well, if God is all powerful and all loving, and something bad happens, clearly He doesn't love me. How do I process that?
Yeah, and that's a tough one. This is what we call theodicy, the whole idea of suffering and God. How do we reconcile that? So we're not going to answer that question today. We're not going to resolve it, but we'll attempt to address these things.
Yeah.
We have to go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So in Genesis, it says God created everything good, right? Everything was good. That's who God is. And His intentions for us were good. He put Adam and Eve in the middle of a garden and said, here, it's lush with all kinds of vegetation or whatever. Till the ground, take care of it, do something with it.
Yeah.
So He gave them everything he needed to succeed.
Yeah.
But there's one problem that for us, He gave them free will. And people, I know a lot of, there are atheists that they hate that argument, that free will, because it really, to me, is the linchpin that answers this question.
Yeah.
God has free will, and He created us in His image. Nobody is going to impose their will on God. God's will is free. He chooses to do what He does. Therefore, He respects that in us. And He's not going to impose His will on us and say, no, I'm going to make you do what's right. He respects our free will too much to do that. If He did that at any moment, He would be saying, I disrespect you and I'm going against my very nature. Because if God's going to impose His will on us at any point in history, then that means we should be able to impose our will on Him. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So for God to be consistent, He's not going to impose His will on anybody. Now, He can influence, He can He'll proclaim the truth, but He's not going to make us do anything against our will.
Yeah.
Now, Satan, who is the embodiment of evil, that's what he tries to do. He always tries to impose his will on people.
Yeah.
Because he's darkness. That's the totally opposite of God.
Yeah.
So when it comes to free will, this to me is a huge issue. And the problems that we experience in our world are a result of our choices, not God's. Yeah. And because of our choices, we've started ourselves from Adam on a cycle that just keeps growing like a snowball. So the effects of sin become worse and worse and worse. Can you imagine how wonderful the world was when God made Adam at the beginning? The air would have been just perfect. The water, everything, nothing in there. But once we sinned and started doing things our own way, we started contaminating the world, literally.
Yeah.
Right? And spiritually and mentally and all that. And so the contaminations we have in our world, the toxins, the garbage that we have in our air, all that stuff. I was just listening to the radio the other day, and in our region of Seattle or the Northwest, we've had one of the lowest air quality ratings at a particular time in our year, and it was due to fire. Okay, so we had these fires, and it creates all this ash and all this terrible air that people can breathe in and hurt. And if they have asthma, it's going to could kill them. Well, whose fault is that? Chances are it was, I think they say that the majority of fires are started by human. So why would somebody do that? Why would somebody deliberately set a fire? Well, there are some that are arsonists. Okay, well, that's a part of free will. That's a part of evil. There are others that maybe do it by accident. They were careless. They weren't valuing their environment, and so they weren't making sure the fire was out. And so they caught on fire. Well, what is that? That's all part of our sin, our doing things our own way, our free will.
Yeah.
And that's what creates the issues in our world. And so the diseases, the poverty, the violence, all of that is a result of human free will.
Yeah.
And God, oh, sure, he could step in and he could make Hitler say no.
Yeah.
But then as soon as he does that,
Yeah.
he's violating his own nature and his own character, because he gave us free will as a gift. And so for him to be consistent, he can't do that.
And I think it's a pretty slippery slope, because we can cherry pick, well, God should have stopped this war
Right.
and this person. But if we start going down that road, I know myself, I wouldn't stop. I would go, well, then God, at some point, I need God stopping every little issue in my life.
Yep.
Because we can use these Hitler types in big, broad arguments, but personally, I carry pain and doubt towards God in my own personal life.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, so now God is needing to solve and resolve and fix every little thing that I think isn't perfect.
Yeah.
And whether it's a big deal in my life, like when my daughter went through cancer, or just frustrations and issues and a cold. And God, I prayed for this cold and I still don't feel good. And it's 3 or 4 or 5. Well, I have a headache. And we have to remember that God made a pretty amazing world, that we actually have a choice in it.
Yeah.
And in that creation of having free will, we have the ultimate opportunity to love well and to not. And if there's no choice, there really isn't love, is there? There's nothing. If I can't choose anything, then I've really just been created as a robot. And I think that getting to that root and letting people realize, okay, what is it that you're really after? Do you want everyone else in the world a robot, but you get free will?
Right.
And if not, if everyone gets free will, if everyone gets choice, then we have to live with the fruit of humanity's choices. And just because humans make bad choices doesn't mean that makes God evil. It'd be like saying, and I think people have argued this, well, if God knew that humans would make bad choices and would become evil, does it make him evil?
Right.
And it's like saying, well, I knew before I had kids that my kids were going to make mistakes.
Right.
Does that mean that I'm an evil person? No. I love my kids and I want the best for them, and I'm going to parent them for them to grow, to make great choices and healthy choices and be wise. But it doesn't, their mistakes aren't my fault in large part.
Yeah.
And trying to navigate that, go, well, God gave us free will, gave us choice. And just because we make bad choices doesn't mean that he's an evil God.
Yeah. It's easy for us to say, well, God, you should have stopped Hitler from doing what he did. But in saying that, then, are you willing to accept the point that God should stop you and that he should impose his will on you?
Yeah.
Well, nobody wants somebody else's will imposed on them, that God made us that way.
Yes.
And that's one of the very arguments that people use to not serve God, is that they don't want God in their lives.
Yeah.
Well, then what if God imposed himself on you and you don't want him?
Yeah.
See, that's what hell is the ultimate. C.S. Lewis says hell is the ultimate monument to freedom, human freedom.
Wow.
Because God says, okay, you don't want me?
Yeah.
Okay, then you don't have me.
Yeah.
So that's what hell is. You're totally on your own.
I was reading someone that I love. He's in heaven already, but he said hell is God's last act of love, because it's his last time he gets to let you choose.
Yeah.
And I thought the perspective on that, I had to sit in it for a minute and go, it's the last thing. He goes, if you don't want to choose me one last time, I love you so much that I will always give you a choice, and you get to choose. And this is your last choice.
Yeah.
But if you don't want me, I love you enough to not impose what I think you should choose.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to be with me for eternity, I will allow you that choice.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking, and I'm sure it just is agonizing for God, but it's his last almost act of love to go, I release you. I'll let you choose. You're making a horrible choice, but it's yours. I will
Right.
let you make it.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think people struggle with, and help me speak to this, is pain and evil. And just because something's painful doesn't necessarily say or mean it's evil.
Right.
But none of us love pain, right? But I think pain does serve a good purpose.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget that without pain, there is no development. Without struggle, there's never been a person that climbed a mountain that didn't have to struggle in training.
Yeah.
Or someone that didn't become a doctor, that didn't have to go through rigors of study and testing. So some level of pain is actually what's producing the character that we honor so much in our world. And honestly, the character that's missing so much in our world today, because people are so pain adjacent. No one wants any struggles. No one wants any pain. And pain is what often produces greatness.
Yeah.
And we look at God and go, yeah, pain is evil. So talk to me about that struggle between pain and
Yeah.
evil.
So you think, so before sin happened, if Adam dropped something on his foot, would it hurt? Well, of course it would. God made us with sensories
Yeah.
and nerves. And
Yeah.
so pain would always be present
Yeah.
in the world, in the physical world. The question is it good pain or bad pain? So, you think of what we call Hansen's disease, where you see pictures of people, what we call lepers, where they have parts of their bodies missing,
Yeah.
parts of their nose missing, whatever. It's all because they have no pain.
Yes.
They have no nerves that sense anything, so their hand could be in a fire and be
and they
burning, and they
wouldn't
wouldn't
know.
even know it.
Yeah.
It could be they could be sitting on it wrong and breaking their wrist, and they wouldn't even know it.
Wow.
Pain is a gift.
Yeah.
It does keep us in the right way. If I put my hand on a stove and it's hot and I don't feel it,
Yeah, it's bad.
ay, ay, ay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and the experience isn't fun, but it's actually life-saving.
Yeah.
It's meant to help us, hey, don't do that.
Yeah.
So that's the good pain. I think what maybe people would have an issue with is the negative pain. Why, the pain, even the suffering when we lose somebody, the grief that we experience, many people might equate that with a negative pain, but really it is still a positive pain. The grief of loss really should create in us the sense of there's got to be more.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's what God has done. Ecclesiastes says he's put eternity into our hearts. There's a sense that there's got to be something more.
Yeah.
And the painful experiences that we have really are designed to direct us to God. Just as when I stick my hand on a stove and if it's hot, that pain is meant to direct me to pull my hand away and use a different course of action.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing in life here. If I feel grief and a loss, that loss tells me that this world does not provide everything that I want.
Yeah.
There's got to be something more.
Yeah.
And in doing that, then it causes me, hopefully, to seek after God. But most people don't let pain do that job.
Yeah.
They just wallow in their pain. It's like me having my hand on the stove and just letting it sit there while it's burning.
Yeah.
Oh man, this hurts so much. Oh, it's terrible. I can't. Well, that's a very futile way of handling pain.
I feel like it's like I've used it as an analogy I'm teaching. It's like when you feel bad, you turn on sad music.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, why am I making it worse?
Yeah.
Turn on them sad, slow songs, and you just get stuck in that, in your emotions and your feelings. And we just get stuck in that pain, don't we?
Yeah. So pain, obviously, if somebody sticks a knife into my body, that's going to be painful, and that's wrong. That's evil. Okay. The pain I'm feeling, though, from the knife is not evil.
Yeah.
The act that creates pain in that way is evil.
Gotcha.
And so that's why I think Jesus said, if somebody slaps you on the cheek, turn the other one. He says, it's not the pain that's the problem. It's the one who's instigating the pain. Mm-hmm. And so if you retaliate, then you're doing the same thing they're doing. Mm-hmm. You're initiating pain and violence. That's not the way this world was meant to operate. Mm-hmm. So it's got to stop somewhere. And so as Christian people, we have to learn how to navigate through pain and use it correctly. And as Christian people, pain should draw us closer to God. That's really what the positive outcome of this. If we get bitter and mad and angry, then we're just responding like any rebellious human being. And that doesn't do any good. It doesn't serve its purpose.
Mm-hmm. It is also funny, as humans, I think all of us feel this way, but I don't think it's valid. It's never been proven that this is a good point, but we all feel that we're supposed to live in this oasis that God's supposed to provide. Mm-hmm. And anything that's not perfect, there's a lot of people that start blaming God. Well, this isn't perfect. This isn't right. You're loving. It's like, wait, when did that idea, when did that thought get planted in humans' minds that we deserve perfection and that everything in my life is supposed to be hand curated to me and I'm not supposed to endure or go through any struggle or pain or anything? It's like, it is a funny thought that all of us hold that, wait, how did the tables get turned where God is now my butler and I'm supposed to have a perfect life? Mm-hmm. And then if something goes wrong, well, it's his fault.
Yeah. But I think that concept of perfection, though, is from God. Because that's what happened when he made Adam and Eve. He made a perfect world. So there is a longing for that.
Yeah.
And that shows that this is, I believe that's a God-given thing that every human being has a sense of. There is some world or some place where it is perfect.
Yeah.
We have that longing. That's why even in, we have these societies where they want utopian societies where we want to build everything perfectly because it's innate in us. There is a place of perfection. Mm-hmm. It's just that we can't create it.
Yeah.
Only God can.
You mentioned C.S. Lewis earlier. He says something like fish long for water and birds long for air, and the humans still long for their perfect environment, their perfect world. And that's eternity with God. Yeah. That's coming back to, like you were saying earlier, that being perfectly human is being fully connected to God.
Yeah. And we're agonizing over the loss, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. The fact that we see the world the way it is, every human being has a sense that this is not the way it was meant to be.
Yeah.
And because it's not. It was meant to be like Adam and Eve's world. But because of sin, this is what we get. So this perfect world that we're looking for is only going to come back as a result of what God does, not what we do. And the only way that we can experience any sense of perfection is by following after God and walking in fellowship with him.
Okay, clearly we can't fully resolve this, but just give me some help on this, because I'm sure there's a few people listening go, okay, I get it that evil's bad, pain in some contexts is bad, sometimes it's useful or needed, but personally I've gone through loss, and I felt like God could have done something and he didn't.
Yeah.
I know I could use my own example or story of feeling like I prayed for healing in Willow, and I prayed for a miracle, and we didn't get that, but we did get healing as we walked it out.
Yeah.
We had multiple miscarriages, and I remember praying, God, protect these kids, and it didn't happen on this side of eternity. Right. How do we process that? Give me what would you say for that person that's really struggling with, they lost their husband. Mm-hmm. He went to heaven early. Mm-hmm. They lost a child in the womb. Mm-hmm. And you're going, wait, but I think God can perform miracles. Mm-hmm. I think God can heal, but he didn't.
Right.
How do I process that? Mm-hmm. How do I navigate believing that God is a God of miracles, but I didn't get one? Does that mean he doesn't love me, or am I bad? Or how do we process that?
Yeah. So think about when Jesus was on the planet. Here's God on the planet. How come he didn't heal everybody in the world? He stayed in one little location called Israel. Mm-hmm. and ministered to some people and healed them, but there were a lot of people that weren't healed.
Yeah.
How come Jesus just didn't solve everybody's problems?
Yeah.
Because again, that's not really the issue.
Okay.
Our problems, see, we make the problems the issue, that everything needs to be the way we want it to be. Whereas God is saying, no, our fundamental issue is that we're out of sync with God.
Gotcha.
That's what Jesus came to do, is restore us to God.
Yeah.
And so as human beings, of course, we want everything to work out the way we want it to. Oh, wait a minute, that sounds like I'm God.
That's true.
Right? And that's not who we are. We have to know our place in the universe.
Okay.
And I think when we see that, yeah, but God, you could have done this. Yes, he could have. But there's obviously things that we don't know. There are things that we don't understand. It's even like, when you look at what's going on in the world today, even in the war in Iran, which human being at a normal level of American life is going to understand all the things that are going on behind the scenes that are creating decisions that are being made? None of us do. Okay? We're in the dark about all of that. And there's just no way that we would know all those things because we just have our own lives and we're limited.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. When God is overseeing things, there are things that we just don't understand and know. Yeah. And this goes back to the book of Job.
Okay.
When Job went through what he went through, he was looking for a remedy. He was looking for an immediate change. Yeah. But by the time God shows up at the end of the book of Job, it becomes an issue of wisdom, not power. Wow. God doesn't say, when he showed up to Job, Job, here, I'm going to heal you right now. That's really the solution to this whole problem. Instead, he started asking Job, where were you when the stars were created?
True.
When the ostrich was made, and the ostrich doesn't even take care of its own. Yeah. Do you understand how that works? And Job had to say, "Oh God, I have no clue.
Yeah, I missed it.
What you went through, you just don't understand. You don't know all the things. You'll never understand. It's too beyond us." Yeah. For God to manage this entire planet, to make it work, there are so many detailed things that have to be adjusted. It reminds me of Bruce Almighty, that when Bruce is sitting in front of the computer and he's trying to answer people's prayers.
And he just says yes.
And then finally he just says yes. Yeah. And it turns the whole world into chaos. Yeah. Because when you say yes to everything, everything's not going to work right. God has to work with this detail, but in order for that detail to work, this detail has to work. But in order for that detail to work, this detail has to work. All the intricacies of making this world function requires wisdom. And we don't have it. We don't have the full picture. We don't, it's like, it's kind of like when somebody is a producer of a music album. They have in their mind what they want to hear. They know what instruments they want to use, how the arrangements that they want to use. So then they'll hire a musician to come in and play their part. Well, the musician who comes in and plays their part isn't thinking the whole picture. They don't see the whole picture. They're just contributing their part to it. So they may start wondering, but how does this fit in with everything? Yeah. Well, you may never understand because the producer has other things they're going to be doing. Yeah. And that's just on a human level. Yeah. Think about God and managing, not just the earth, it's the universe. Yeah. Making this whole thing work. There are so many things that we just could not fathom and don't understand. And we have every right not to understand because we are human. But we have to trust. And so at some point, Job says, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Yeah. Yet will I hope in him. Yeah. So it comes down to that. Yeah, you know what? There's just so many things I don't understand. But fundamentally, God, you have called me to trust you. And that trust is what binds my heart to God and helps me align with him and walk out my humanity the way God intended me to. So yes, I have questions. Yes, I wonder. But do I even have the capacity, if God actually was to answer it, would I have the capacity to understand? Well, some people say, well, let me give it a try.
Let me try at least.
But it's like talking to a first grader about chemistry formulas.
Yeah.
And how things work. If and you got to multiply by this and square this, and there's no way they're going to understand that.
Totally.
So I think some of these questions are always rooted in human pride.
Yeah.
We think we know everything, or we should know everything, or that we could know everything.
We should. Yeah.
Yeah. We just don't.
Yeah. And it goes back to trust. I love that wisdom in Job. It's like, I just need my problem solved.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's more than that. It's bigger. Mm-hmm. Keep trusting God. Eternity is in your heart. You really long for eternity, and you're in the limitations of this world today, and you just can't process everything you were created for and everything that there will be for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Just even thinking of the concept of eternity.
Oh, stresses me out.
Right? I don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
I'm so used to an end coming to something.
Yes.
Eternity is not that. And I can't understand even that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that I can understand other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still in elementary school.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that wrestle with that. And I think the fear or just the struggle that I have is trying to give an adequate answer of hope, of understanding. And I don't think we're going to always be able to just give people the answer that they want, because it's just not here. Mm-hmm. That pain is unfair. That loss is tragic. Mm-hmm. That can be true, and also God is good. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, the hard thing, is going, I lost that child in the womb. God is still good.
Yeah.
And getting to that place of God was there in my grief, even though he didn't answer my prayer the way I hoped, and trusting him.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle. And that's what I'm trying to, and as a pastor and a shepherd, that's what grieves me, is I wish I could give a better answer and give more of a solution.
Yeah.
I'm kind of solution driven. I love it. So I always ask my son, Levi, like, what do treat boys do? And his response, we solve problems. And I'm just so driven to solve problems sometimes. Yeah. And it's like, that's a problem. I think we should have to remember, we live in a world where the devil can never overpower God, so he attacks his kids. Mm-hmm. And we live in a world where the devil's going to attack us because he can't get to God. So the best thing he could do is hurt his kids. Mm-hmm. But there's still more, and there's still eternity. And maybe the best thing we can do is to look like Jesus and show off our perfect humanity through all of that struggle and through the pain, and keep growing through it and keep overcoming it, and allow those struggles and those setbacks and those hardships to not harden you, but to strengthen you. Mm-hmm. So you go, wow, it's like, look at any elite soldier. Mm-hmm. They go through hell. Mm-hmm. You're not born that way. You go through it, and it doesn't harden them where they're no longer human. Right. It actually stretches them to the peak human. Yeah. The most effective, the strongest, and I think sometimes in life, we have to allow these things not to harden us and get angry at God, but to actually stretch us to have more compassion.
Right.
And more wisdom. And
yeah, because when we get angry and bitter, we actually shrivel.
Yeah.
As human beings.
Makes us smaller.
Yeah. And and again, maybe some people would say, yeah, but those guys volunteered to go through that SEAL training.
Yes,
I'm not volunteering to go through this.
Nope.
I didn't have any choice in being born.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. But again, you're going to face hardship. So how are you going to deal with it? Are you going to get bitter? Mm-hmm. If you get bitter, you get smaller. Yeah. If you handle it correctly, it actually causes you to long for God more and follow after him more.
Yeah.
I was thinking of a situation, I just drew a blank, but.
Well, you mentioned getting smaller. It's like one of my favorite books from C.S. Lewis, and he talks about hell as just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Yep. I love that analogy. Like when we walk in God, it just grows us. Mm-hmm. We get bigger. And when we get prideful and arrogant and self-centered, we just keep shrinking and shrinking until we're smaller than even the grass blades in eternity. And you just whittle to nothing. Yeah. But when situations don't overtake you, when they don't break you, you go, I'm going to get stronger through this. I'm going to overcome. It's going to grow compassion in me. It's going to grow wisdom in me. It's going to grow empathy in me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to stay meek. this isn't my world. This isn't all revolving around me.
Right.
And I'll walk in more compassion for others and allow God to keep growing in me.
Yeah, when you talked about God being good, even though we have bad things happen to us, when we equate God's goodness with our experiences, then we're really qualifying God. We're saying
Right.
this is when you're good and when
Right.
you're not.
Yeah.
God's goodness is not affected by what anything happens. No matter what happens, God being good is never
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
That's just who He is.
Yes.
So when we equate our suffering with whether God's good or not, that's our issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's our thinking. That's not who God is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, who are we to say or demand of God, God, you're only good if you give me what I want?
Mm-hmm.
It just, to me, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure there's been a day where someone was praying for me to get hurt. So I'm glad that God wasn't good that day.
Yeah.
You know what? You know, because I think we've all hurt people and made mistakes and had bad days, and
Yeah.
If God was answering their prayers like Bruce Almighty, I might be in a world of hurt. So I'm glad that He's shown me mercy on some of my bad days as well.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully today's conversation gave some clarity to people's view of God in the Old Testament and the New Testament, the lens through Jesus, just even restoring humanity. I think is such a big point to me even today, just that Jesus shows me how to be human, how to be who I was created to be. It also, I think, helps me because some people, I think, put a negative bent on humanity. It's almost like that's the problem.
Right.
As opposed to realizing, no, I need to walk in my full humanity. That's what I was created to be. God made me human. Yeah. And it's the brokenness in it, it's the evil in it that's pulling me away from being who He created me to be, which is fully human.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can answer or, help people through struggles with pain. And
there's a scripture in Hebrews 2, and this is what I had drawn a blank on, but it said, Jesus learned obedience through the things which He suffered. So, and here, this is God in the flesh.
Yeah.
God didn't know what disobedience was, but Jesus, through the things He suffered, understood and learned what it is to actually having to choose to obey God over something else.
Yeah.
And Jesus showed to us how to do it. He actually did it.
Yeah.
But He suffered in that. So His experience of suffering actually taught Him in His obedience.
Yes.
It's the same thing with us. I think, what do we do with the suffering? That's the question. And if we learn how to be obedient to God through the suffering, that's following Jesus.
Yeah.
That's being like Jesus.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. I think if we could all aspire to that, aim for that, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth it. And it's what we all deep down want. We want to be that. We just often don't want to go through it.
Right.
And so I think if we can have the faith and the courage and like what we started with, that prayer, if we can live a life that's connected to God, then we can overcome those struggles and we can get through those sufferings and we can overcome the pain. But if we're people that aren't connected to God through prayer and through His Word, then we're gonna have a really hard time getting through pain and loss and confusion. So, well, thanks for being here today, and I hope we gave some people a few good things to work on and chew on and process, and I think it's going to help some people.
Yeah. Amen.
Thanks, Terry.
Yep.